Hey everyone, my name's Dom, welcome back to Dominish Books. Today I've got another book tag for you. This time it's the Halloween candy tag. So this is two things that I'm not very much at home with. We'll find out more in a moment. Alright, so this is a tag that was created by Megan from Megan's Reading Revelations, and she tagged me in this video because she asked on her Discord about people's favourite Halloween candy. Now, being a Brit, that doesn't mean anything to me because they are sweets rather than candy, but also for me specifically, Halloween isn't really something that I enjoy. I'm not bothered about the getting dressed up. I don't do spooky things for spooky season or anything along those lines. Yes, you can call me a boring old fart if you want. I'm perfectly happy for you to do that. This tag though, I did contribute. I said one of my favourite sweets is Haribo, wine gums, any of the kind of gummy sweets, and that was included in Megan's tag, and she specifically tagged me as one of the people who contributed answers to her original question. So there we go, and here we are. I'm just going to run through these questions then, some of them a bit shorter than others, and as usual I have the questions in the timestamps below so you can skip ahead and backwards at your leisure. So question one then, and this is one that was kind of aimed at me with my answer as far as favourite sweets go, and that is Gummy Bears, and this is a book where characters get themselves out of a sticky situation. Now, reading epic fantasy, I can say that a lot of the books that I read would really fall into this category because that's part of the story as far as fantasy goes. People get themselves into a difficult situation and then hopefully they get themselves out of it as well. The book I'm going to go for, in fact I'm going to go for a series because it applies all across the board, and that is The Greatcoats by Sebastian de Castell. Book one being Traitor's Blade, and all four of the books in this series are told from the viewpoint of one of the Greatcoats, Valkio Valmont. Now these characters are constantly getting themselves into scrapes and getting themselves out of them again, and some of that might be done by their wit, by their skill, by sheer dumb luck, and occasionally, yes, by a bit of Here Comes the Cavalry, but it always makes for a really exciting read. You kind of know because they're the heroes, and especially for Falkio because he is the first person point of view, you're hearing it from his kind of retelling, if you like. You kind of know that the characters are generally going to get out of these situations because that's most of the time, that's how these things work, but it's still a thrill ride. It's still really exciting trying to find out how they're going to do it. Is this time their last time? Has their luck run out? What is going to happen? So I loved these books. All four of them in this series were absolutely phenomenal as far as I'm concerned, and I think it's a really good example for this question of characters getting into and out of sticky situations. Question two is Milky Way Midnight. This is a book that kept me up reading throughout the night. Now, I'm not actually going to give a book as answer to this question because I'm 40 years old, I've got a 7-year-old daughter, I need my sleep, and there's no way, even if I wanted to, that I'm going to be staying up all night reading. Taking the spirit of the question, I am going to defer this to question 6, which is very similar in my mind, and I'll give a proper answer then. Question 3 then, to skip ahead, is Caramel Apple Lollipops, which, that's toffee apples, isn't it? If you're a Brit, that's a toffee apple. I don't know why they call them caramel apple lollipops. That's just too much of a mouthful, and you want the caramel apple lollipop in your mouth, not the words. So this one though is your favourite middle grade or children's book. And if you know me, despite one of the answers that I'm going to give in a couple of questions time, I don't do YA. It's not a genre or subgenre that really suits me, so I don't really have many books in my repertoire that I could go to answer this one. I am going to give an answer though, and this is actually one of my daughter's books, so I've picked it out for a reason because it is her favourite kind of book series, I guess, at the moment. Now, one of the books that I really have enjoyed, or one of the series I've really enjoyed, is The First Law by Joe Abercrombie, and I always said when I was reading the original First Law trilogy that my favourite parts were with Dogman and his group, the Northmen, and the banter that they have and the adventures that they have. And I would love a book just about Dogman and his group and their adventures. Well, the book series that my daughter is reading at the moment is Dogman by Dav Pilkey. So this one is about a dog who is a policeman, and as it says on the back, it's the greatest book about a dog-headed cop ever written. So if you want a recommendation for a really younger reader, Dogman Comes highly recommended. Question 4 is Reese's Pieces. This is a book that is short but packs a punch. I'm going to choose 2 books here for the 2 books that so far make up the Threadlight series by Zach Argyle. I've spoken about these quite a lot. It seems like I'm talking about these books in every video that I do at the moment, so I'm not going to talk about them too much except to say that these are, for fantasy at least, what I would call short books. They're both sub 400. I think Stones of Light is 356 and Voice of War 380 pages on the Kindle as I read them. So for me, for the books that I read, these are short books, but they definitely pack a punch. Rather than talk specifically about them, though, as I say, I've done that enough in my recent videos, and I'm going to link the dedicated review for both of these books up in the cards throughout this question. Question 5 then is Milk Duds, and this is a book that was a disappointment. I've been quite fortunate, I think. I don't tend to have, I don't really have books that I DNF, so as far as that being a disappointment goes, I think I do quite well. I have had a few recently that I've been really looking forward to and have let me down though, because they weren't as good as I was expecting. And the book that I'm going to go for here is Nolan by Michael J. Sullivan. Again, dedicated review I'll leave up in the cards in the corner. This one, I love his Rhaenyra Revelation series. It's one of my favourites. Whenever I get around to my top 10 list, it will be in that list. But one of the earlier books in the chronology of this world, Nolan is the first book in the new series, Rise and Fall. And I was really looking forward to it because of my love for Rhaenyra Revelations. But Nolan, it was a disappointment for me. I rated it 3 stars. I just had so many issues with the writing, and I think, as I mentioned in my dedicated review, I think that was because I wasn't enjoying the book itself. I wasn't enjoying the storyline and the characters and such, and therefore I was kind of picking out all of these bits that I was finding wrong with the actual the formatting, the writing style, and so forth. So not a great start as far as the series goes. I'm probably not going to be in any great rush, at least, to pick up the second and the third book in this trilogy when they do come out, but I still recommend Michael J. Sullivan's writing. I don't know whether it was just Nolan wasn't for me, or maybe it wasn't the right time. Either way, for me, this book was a disappointment. Question 6 then is Snickers. This is a book that I devoured, so this is one where I'm going to bring forward that answer to question 2, the book that kept me all night reading. This one, I looked through my Goodreads kind of history because I was trying to get an idea of which books I finished the quickest, essentially, which would really give me the answer to this question. And I knew that there were some books that I'd read in just less than a week, which is a great pace for me because historically I've not been a very fast reader. And indeed, I went through a period a couple of years ago when I was in a proper reading slump, and some of the books that I saw the start and end date on my Goodreads history was ridiculous. It was literally 2 or 3 months to read books. I think Last Argument of Kings by Joe Abercrombie was one which took me something like July to November. So I wasn't having a very good time with it at that particular point. One of the things that really got me out of that reading slump though, it's when I first turned to sci-fi, and that was with the Star Wars book. So I'd just seen the kind of original, if you like, 6 seasons of the Clone Wars, and I'd just seen the 2 seasons of Rebels, and I really enjoyed them, and I wanted to know more about these characters and where they went from there. So I started reading the Star Wars books, and the first one I picked up, because I loved the character and I wanted to know what happened next, specifically to her, was Ahsoka by E.K. Johnston. So I gave an indication of the type of reading slump I was in and how long it was taking to read some of the books around a similar time. And this one, despite being 400 pages in the Kindle version that I read the entire thing in one day. It wasn't quite one sitting, but I read the entire thing in one day, cover to cover, and I absolutely loved it. So although technically it's counted as one of the YA Star Wars novels, I really enjoyed it. I don't think it really read as YA because it is all kind of PG as we would rate it in the UK, really. It's you know, no real violence. It's kind of its very own Star Wars level of violence. So we don't have anything generally in these books that's too dark. But Ahsoka I particularly liked because I loved the character and we got to see a lot more from her. And we essentially got, for those who know the series, we got pretty much the telling of the story of where she went from the end of Clone Wars to the start of Rebels, and some of that story, some of the events in this book has since been revisited, and a little bit of it may be a bit retconned in the 7th series from 2021, was it, of the Clone Wars animated series. So we get to see again kind of the immediate aftermath there of what happened at the end of the original Clone Wars, and that is all covered at the start of the book, Ahsoka. So I really like the book, and as well as the story itself and the character, the history and all that side of things, I really like this because of that kind of special place it has for me as the book that got me out of this big reading slump that I'd had over the past pretty much 2 years up to that point. So since then I've read a load more of the Star Wars books as I was getting back into the swing of things and taking a bit of a break from fantasy, and I think that's really done me well. So I really like this book, and it's definitely one that I can say I devoured. Okay, question 7 is Peppermint Patties. This is a book that is refreshing, and I nearly went with one of the Discworld books because I think they're pretty refreshing in their lightheartedness and such, and they're kind of good palate cleansers. But one that I think is actually a really nice palate cleanser, as much as I have them at least, is Spiderlight by Adrian Tchaikovsky. So I love Adrian Tchaikovsky's writing in general. There's not much of his that I've read that I don't really get on with, so that's a definite plus point. This one, I just thought it was really refreshing because it's just a small book. It's practically a novella. It's just shy of 300 pages. Yeah, about 290 pages. So it doesn't take a lot to get through it, and it's just a nice standalone kind of dungeon crawler type book. It's a group of adventurers essentially who are going on a quest, so it is specifically kind of told in the vein of a D&D type adventure. I really enjoyed the characters and the lightheartedness. There is a good bit of humour in here. There's a bit of magic in it. There's Adrian Tchaikovsky's kind of trademark creepy crawly touch to it as well, as you can probably guess by the title and the cover if you can see it there. It's got some nice spiders involved, so definitely a refreshing read for me if you're a bit bogged down in some of the big heavyweight fantasy series or books and you want something that's a little bit more light going. Spiderlight by Adrian Tchaikovsky, can't go too far wrong with it, as long as maybe you're not too put off by the spiders. Okay, question 8. This is Dark Chocolate, and the question itself is a book with good romance. So I've said this a few times before in previous tags where I've had similar questions. I read epic fantasy, and romance definitely takes a back seat in those, so there's not really a lot that I can point to of the books that I've read that would really fit this question quite nicely. One of the recent ones that I did read though was Best Served Cold by Joe Abercrombie. So in here we have got some fantastic scenes of love. Well, lovemaking. Can't really call it lovemaking, can I? We've got some scenes in here involving Monza and Shivers, which may well just send a shiver down your spine, but they definitely have a fantastic, epic fantasy love and romance between them. Whatever you will say about the squelch squelch in this book, it's still a better love story than Twilight. And then question 9 is Peanut Butter Taffy. This is a special edition book that I own, and I think I literally just have the one special edition book in my collection, and that is The Great Bazaar and Other Stories by Peter V. Brett. So this is a Subterranean Press kind of short story collection. It is it's not quite leather bound, but I forget what they specifically call the binding on this one. Deluxe hardcover edition, according to the dust jacket flap though. But this one is a nice signed and numbered. This, despite saying at the bottom it's limited, special edition limited to 200 numbered copies. You can see at the bottom there, my number is PC. So either somebody can't count, or there's more than 200 of these knocking about there. I won this one though in a Twitter competition years ago, and I've read it because I really enjoyed The Warded Man or The Painted Man, depending on which country you're in, by Peter V. Brett. It's one of my favourite fantasy books. although it's not the Demon Cycle, one of my favourite fantasy series, which is really sad as far as I'm concerned because it had great potential. But it's a really nice limited edition, special edition copy, and I'm happy to have this one on my shelves. And then for the typical question 10, let's tag some people to get some sweets or treats or candy or whatever you want to call it for Halloween. I'm only going to tag one person, and this is a new booktuber who's been on the scene for, at this point, only a few weeks now, but it's another British booktuber who has got actually a really similar taste to my own, so I really enjoy what content he's put out so far. This is Billy from Book Reading Billy. If you haven't checked him out, as always, details will be in the description box below. Go take a look at his channel, hit him up with a subscribe if you enjoy his content, and I look forward to seeing if he's got some good answers to these questions as well. That's it for today though, so there is the Halloween candy, chocolate, sweets, treats, whatever you want to call it, tag. Make it your own if you do want to do this one as well. As usual, do the like and subscribe stuff if you haven't already done so and if you want to help out, and I will hopefully see you in another video soon. But until then, as always, take care of yourselves, read some good books. Bye for now.